Alright, we are back with another greater long, and today we're working with this clip and turning it from this Canon log free into something more teal orange, but also more desaturated greens. And today I promise you we'll make it super simple and super easy. We're only going to use 8 notes and we're going to be as efficient as we possibly can. As always, you can download this footage from my website, the footage pack. You get 12 clips so far. I'll update it later on. And that allows you to grade along with this video as well if you want to try the exact same things with the same clips. So with that out of the way, let's jump into Davinci Resolve and get started. We are inside Davinci Resolve. We're in the color page. As you can see, I already set up my note tree and label everything. You can, if you want to, download for free in the description below the power grades for this one. So if you want to do that, you can jump into your gallery here after you've opened a new project. You can simply right click and click import. And then find the file on the Google Drive, download it. Make sure that you download both files. I haven't renamed it yet in here right now, but it will just be called AB Grade Along Free. Make sure that you have both the DPX and the DRX file in the same folder, and then select the DPX file, import it, and you will have a grade tree, note tree here that you can then import. Make sure that you are on the right version, the latest version as well, and then you can just click Apply Grade, and that should apply the note tree over here. And you can just grade along as well. Now, the only thing I've done to this note tree, apart from making a lot of notes, is that from the inside note here, you can see we have it connected. So these are just normal serial notes. You can just add a note and then add another note, serial notes, all the way to here. The inside note is a normal note, but then by adding an outside note, we get this other note that will select the opposite of what we select in this one. More on that when we get there. And then we just have a color space transform here at the end that just converts my footage from Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon log free, into Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. Apart from that, I think that's pretty much all that we are doing in this. My settings here are set to 4K and 30 frames per second. This footage was shot in 60, so we have slowed it down. And for color management, we're actually going to do Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon log free, just for this video, because that's what we're grading in. Normally I have it set to either Rec. 709 or Davinci White Gamut, but we're going to keep it simple in this video, so don't worry too much about that. Now let's just get started. And since we've already converted the footage from log, as you see here, into Rec. 709, we already have a pretty nice image to work with. This is a footage clip of me walking in the forest. So what we're going to try and achieve is a little bit of a darker look to this and some more desaturated greens, as we all know that's a popular look. So let's just jump in and start with the contrast here. We're going to make a slightly strong contrast curve for this one, I think. And don't worry that it's stretching a little bit much here in the beginning. I'm going to soften up the blacks just a little bit from the start as well. And by that, we have this already. So we're just making a simple S curve here by dragging down the shadows and improving the highlights a little bit by dragging those up. Basically creating more distance between the darker and the brighter areas here. That's all we're going to do for the contrast. Now I want to adjust the exposure a little bit. For that, let's just see if we want to adjust the offset a little bit. I think we want to drag that up just a slight notch here, something like this. Then I want to improve the gamma a little bit, something like this, and then just the lift down one, something like this. And maybe we even went too strong with the offset here, so just dragging that down a little bit again. Something around the lines of this I think is pretty good. It is a little bit more overexposed now, so maybe we drag the highlights down a little bit as well, maybe to around -15. And now I think it is pretty good for what we want to achieve in this clip. So that's it for the contrast and the exposure. We went from this to this, so we've balanced out the image quite a lot. The only thing I want to play around with is the balance. So let's just change to a vector scope here. And what I want to see here is just move around the colors a little bit in the offset. So the red, the green, and the blue channel, to see if we can balance out the image a little bit more. So by adjusting the red tones here, let's see what happens. And I'm just going to kind of balance it around a little bit, not too much, and see if we get something that is nicer. And I actually think that just by warming it up a slight bit here, something like this, that's even a little bit too much. Something like this, just getting a little bit more warmth in the image is all I want to do for this. You don't have to do it, it's pretty good set already from the beginning, but let's just see what we did. This is basically our color correction, contrast, exposure, balance. So we went from this, which was the converted from log to Rec. 709 footage, to this that looks a lot better. Color corrected. This is pretty much what it looked like in real life. Maybe a little bit more contrasty, but that's how I like to edit. And if we turned everything off completely, this was our log clip, and this is where we are now. So pretty basic so far. Let's switch back to our waveform here, just so we keep an eye on what we're doing. And first up, I want to put in our look. And we're going to do the simple thing that I pretty much always do. We're just gonna add a little bit of teal and orange. So I'm adding 0.03 and 0.02 in the blue and the green channel here. And I'm just gonna remove negative 0.01 here, just to get that more teal look. And now it doesn't look very good. So we're going to remove the same that we added in the lift. We're gonna remove that in the gamma here. Now we've created those a bit more teal shadows here. You can see that especially in here where it becomes more teal, and all the greens here become more teal as well. And we have the skin is still looking pretty good. So I think overall everything is pretty okay here. We could add one more red, but I think that will exaggerate the highlights a little bit too much and make them too warm. I don't want that for this look, so we're just gonna separate it by doing it like this. Then we head into the curves, and it's where we want to adjust and balance our look a little bit more. So the first thing I'm gonna do, since we have skin tones in this clip, is that I want to mask those out or click those out. So if you click here and select the qualifier, you just kind of draw upon the skin here. And that should make a pretty good selection of where the colors in the skin lie. Something around this. And we're gonna leave the skin alone to begin with, because what I want to do first is all the kind of white tones, the green tones all around here, I want to desaturate them quite a bit. But first I want to make sure that they lie in the correct space. So I want the greens to be a little bit more warm. I'm gonna do that by making a node or a point around here to control the teals in a second. Somewhere around here as well, just to kind of lock the colors in. And I'm going to try and push the greens a little bit more towards the warmer tones here. Something like this. I have my histogram here set to output. That's why you can see it move in the background when I do this. You can see it move. And for me, that's a pretty good representation to see where all the colors are moving in what direction. So right now they're moving a little bit more towards the yellow tones, which is what I was trying to achieve here. So somewhere around this, you can see the difference from this a little bit more saturated green tone to something that's a little bit more warm or yellow. And the blues here, I want to push them a little bit more towards the greens here, not that it's gonna matter that much. And then one thing I know from this clip is that these reds seems a little bit too pink to me. So I'm going to drag those down a little bit over here, just to create something that looks a bit more red to me. Something like this. So now with this, we've kind of balanced tones a little bit more without touching the skin tones at all. Then we're going to head into the hue versus saturation. And this is where we're going to desaturate a lot of the colors here. So I'm just going to drag down my saturation tool here, make a good, nice, strong curve here. And that's to get that kind of more desaturated look all around here. I think we might actually want to just drag down around the reds here a little bit too, so they're not too strong. And I really like this kind of faded look where we now have these faded greens and this stronger look in the middle. Now it might be a little bit strong still, but let's just go with it for now and see where we can get it. And for the luminance, I kind of want to turn that dial as well. Not that it's going to do that much, it's just going to turn down the luminance a little bit for those colors. So that's pretty much what we have now. I actually really like how this looks already. So let's just see what we did with our look and our curves. We went from this to this in just a few adjustments. Let's recap quickly. We went from the look here, we added blue and green in the lift and removed a little bit of red. And then we removed the green and the blue in the gamma while we left the reds alone. That's all we did in here. Then we went into our curves and we said, okay, we'll lock in the skin tones because I don't want to dial them around. But then we made the greens a little bit warmer and we adjusted the blues a little bit, and the reds we made more red, removing a little bit from this pink magenta area. Then we desaturated everything, especially the reds here as well, but the greens and the blues in particular. And then we just made everything a little bit darker. It doesn't make the biggest difference, but a little bit. So that's pretty much what we worked with so far. Now we get to the masking, and we are going to keep it really, really simple today with just an inside and an outside node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circular mask around me here. So I'm the person walking in this shot. Zoom out a little bit so we can see what we're doing. I'm just going to click Shift H to see what I've selected, and I think this is a pretty good selection. Now, I said in the beginning that we created an outside node over here. We do that by right-clicking, adding a node and an outside node. And what that does is now when we click on this node, you will see that everything around me is pretty faded out. It's not completely gray, but it means that it's selecting everything around me. And you'll see why we're doing that in a second. But first up, I want to create a little bit more contrast on me, the subject, just to make me stand out a little bit more. So I'm gonna make the tiniest little S-curve here, and you can see that just creates a little bit more contrast, makes me stand out a little bit more. And then I'm going to make sure we're not losing any of the light here. So I'm gonna add 2 gamma and remove 1 lift. And that's just kind of gonna leave us in the same space of where we were luminance-wise or brightness-wise. You can see it's gonna add a little bit more contrast without losing out on anything else. So I think that looks pretty good. Now to the outside node, all we're pretty much gonna do here is just drag down the gamma. Something like this, around 3 maybe. Maybe lift up the shadows a little bit. Something like this, or maybe actually leave the shadows alone, but just drag up the lift 1. Oh, just 1. And then decrease the gamma a little bit again. Something like this. And you can see now we get those really moody greens. It's not too strong, but I think it looks pretty good. And what we can do as well is just, because we're just selecting the outside here, we could desaturate it a little bit. So maybe put the saturation to around 40 and just increase the look a little bit. And you can see with these 2 masks, the inside and the outside node, we went from this to this, just making the subject stand out a little bit more. Since the light is coming from up here, it kind of makes sense, even though it looks like it's a little bit backlit. And then we have the emphasis now, our eyes will focus on this area rather than looking too much to the sides. Whereas before, when it was a little bit more balanced, we're still looking to the subject here, but our eyes might wander a little bit more. So I think this is a pretty strong look. So if we're just looking here, this is the log clip that we went from, and this is what we have now. So let's turn off everything here and just kind of step by step walk through it before we end this video. So log to Rec. 709, that's what we did before we even started. Then we went in and added some contrast. It's a little bit too strong, so we adjusted the exposure. Then we went in and balanced it a little bit, just to make it a little bit warmer. Then we added our look to make it more teal and orange. We added our curve just to adjust and balance all the colors a little bit and make everything a little bit more desaturated, make the look a little bit better. Then we added our inside node here just to emphasize a little bit on the subject here. And then we added our outside node in the end. It's super simple, and this is one of the best node trees, I think, for just making simple, quick edits. If you have this node tree set down, you can do a lot. Now, normally you will see me have more nodes, and that's because I like to go in and edit and adjust more things. But for a simple beginner node tree, this is a strong way of starting, and this has all the components that you need for the color correction, which is also the log to Rec. 709 here is part of, to creating a look and curves, and then a little bit of masking to adjusting and controlling the light. So that's pretty much what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you can use this clip and this technique and to maybe grade a little bit faster, or at least get started with your own things. Again, you can grab the footage. The clip here is in the footage pack. If you want to grade along yourself, watch this video again, or maybe you already grabbed it and you're grading along. Please leave a comment below if you have any suggestions or questions. I'm always happy to help. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, take care.